if you are expecting these traditional heavy hitters to come in and utilize your technology, don't we need to have it somewhat a little bit more centralized where you can make those types of decisions?
It's such a dumb thing to say. It's such a maxi thing to say. It's just absolutely silly.
We just experienced the largest financial heist in history. Bybit was hacked for $1.4 billion on the 21st of February. The second largest was Central Bank of Iraq. So we're not just talking about crypto, we're talking about the entire industry. What does this mean for crypto? What are we to do moving forward? And what are the projects that are actually building despite all of this noise? So we're going to talk about it today. Kanye's coming out, talking about some stuff about crypto as well. We're going to get to all of that. But first of all, based on what you're seeing in the markets, I mean, things are not responding great after this Bybit exploit. But what's your overall feel on the markets right now?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's actually pretty resilient. Obviously, it's not a positive thing, right? And markets are going to reflect that. But like, I think maybe in the past, this could have been a potentially, I don't know, just massive accelerant to a bear market. Just the amount that's been stolen. Obviously, like you said, it was I just thought it was the largest in crypto, but apparently it's the largest financial heist ever. So, I think, yes, obviously the market is down a bit, but like overall pretty resilient. I still think it's something that this would have been a bigger deal in different times. So, not as bad as I thought it.
But can it get worse? Because right now we're anticipating, or we are expecting, that all of these institutions are going to start using our technology. But if we can't even protect these assets, like, how are they going to jump in? And now you've got, North Korea potentially that's involved. So we're going to jump into and talk about all the details about who's involved, how did all this go down. But if Lazarus Group is truly part of this, and now they have access to all of this Ethereum, and that is going to get dispersed in all these wallets, and now you're going to have all these meme coins or whatever being launched to generate more money. I mean, this does not bode well for the industry, right?
Again, sure. Like, of course not. Of course, it's not a positive event, no doubt about that. But again, I think you're seeing the industry mobilize much faster in terms of tracking these stolen assets. I think you saw the Bybit team like absolutely put on a masterclass on how to respond to something like this. Within minutes of the hack, the CEO Ben Zhou confirmed the breach, kept withdrawals open, and said that client funds were back, and they were transparent throughout the entire ordeal. You saw Zach XBT just doing his on-chain analysis. Then, there's, I think USDT is getting frozen by the Tether team. You're seeing an industry that kind of understands what to do now. And even though we want to avoid these, we do everything that we can to avoid these kinds of hacks. You're seeing like seasoned veterans respond in the right way and extremely quickly.
Yeah. And this is as of 11 hours ago. Bybit put out a tweet saying that they're close to 100% of their ETH reserves and deposits and withdrawals are back to normal. So, I mean, things are in the right direction, moving in the right direction. And to your point, I do feel that they put on a masterclass. I mean, the fact that the founder was doing a live stream for over an hour, addressing the media head on. I mean, that was truly amazing to see. And what's interesting is there was actually a tweet that Ben put out, who's the CEO of Bybit, and it showed his stress levels because he wears a whoop.
Yeah.
And he was just like cool as a cucumber. And I think that's pretty cool to see because he, in that situation, really thought, okay, instead of me just wasting my time being stressed out, what do we need to do? And, to your point, they were very transparent about what needs to happen. The community came in together, like CZ came out and supported them. I think there was another exchange that came out and they're lending them, I believe like 70, 80% of the Ethereum that was lost was bridged over to help them recover that. So I think the industry as a whole did a good job, despite the fact that this is the largest heist in history, as we just mentioned. But I'm just thinking more of the long-term implications here, right? If you are, these institutions that are considering to jumping in, I mean, how safe are you feeling about this? It just brings more emphasis on the importance of security. And let's talk about what actually happened. So Certic actually put out, Certic is the largest Web3 security firm. They put out a great explanation as to what happened. Now, we're not going to dive super deep into like the technicalities of this because this is definitely a more on like a engineering auditing level, but they do a quick rundown about what happened. And basically this was a malicious contract upgrade. The attack began with a phishing attack where hackers tricked 3 multi-signature wallet signers. So basically whenever you're signing for a transaction, you need 3 people to sign off on it. And this is done in order to essentially make sure that you don't have somebody that is signing the wrong transaction by mistake or intentionally. And so you have a wallet that requires 3 signers, right? So this is separate than your standard MetaMask wallet or your Phantom wallet where you just sign off. This is more done on an institutional level. And all 3 of the signers approved a fake transaction where the safe wallet displayed a legitimate transaction, but the real data that was sent to the ledger was altered. So what is the lesson learned from this? When you're using your cold wallet, which essentially this exploit was related to the Ethereum cold wallet, the main takeaway here is don't rely on the UI, right? That's the biggest thing. Actually look at your ledger and understand what you're signing off on. And I know that's difficult because you're signing off on something on a bunch of numbers and you can't see all of them. So it can get tricky, right, Mike? But I mean, that's ultimately the best thing that you can do is to make sure that you don't just rely on the UI, but you're actually looking at the actual wallet, your ledger, I should say, and understand what you're signing off on. So that's the biggest takeaway from this security breach.
Yeah. Another thing I found weird was like, why would you keep that much crypto in a single wallet? Right. I found that strange, right? 1.4 billion in, crypto assets in a single, like what, shouldn't you spread that out into, 10, 20, 30 wallets? I don't, I found that to be very strange to kind of, we talk about decentralization and like, yeah, multi-sigs are, in general, overall a good process, but to have access to just a huge amount of assets in a single wallet is, I think, something that could certainly be improved.
I'm sure they're going to reevaluate their process, which has been polished, has been buttoned up. It's a reason why they were able to react as well as they have. What's interesting, I was listening to an interview where Ben was talking about how with a press of a button, essentially it alerts everybody and all of the employees need to sleep. All of the Bybit employees need to sleep with their phones next to them. I don't know if you heard this, Mike, but yeah. So middle of the night, your phone goes off and you better pick up because they got all hands on board for this. The BD team, the marketing team, operations, like everybody was alert and working. And this was Singapore time. This was middle of the night and they were just like all systems go. So very, very, I think if anything, if there's any good news from this, it shows the integrity, the character, the transparency of that team. And I think long term, it bodes well for that specific exchange because they've been put through the ringer and it looks to be they're okay. We'll see how that continues. But the other question here, Mike, is I don't know if you heard about this, but there's some conversation around potentially rolling back the chain of the Ethereum, which means that you have a fork, right? And for those that don't understand what that means, basically it's like canceling out that transaction, like it never happened. Right. And the two sides here, on one side, people are saying, yes, that you should do that because the perpetrators here have bad intentions. And other people are saying, well, you need to maintain the decentralization of crypto, of blockchain.
No one's serious.
What are your comments on this, Mike?
No one's serious is saying roll back the chain. It is the Bitcoin maxis who said roll back the chain. And it was Raj from Solana to say roll back the chain. There's no one who is seriously thinking about rolling back the chain. It's total BS. It's such a lame thing to say in a serious situation, right? You see people like Samson Mao, built Bitcoin Ultra Maxi saying, oh, you got to roll back the chain. Like, it's such a dumb thing to say. It's such a maxi thing to say. It's just absolutely silly.
Okay, so but why would they say that? To jeopardize
Because
Ethereum even more? Like why would they even bring that up?
because they don't like Ethereum. They don't like the idea of, I don't want to say, oh, Ethereum, potentially flipping Bitcoin or, Sol flipping Ethereum, all that stuff, right? Like, but they just think that their chain, Bitcoin or Solana, like they're just kind of attacking at like the worst possible time. No one is serious about it. It is a silly argument. It is lame. No one is seriously thinking about rolling back Ethereum.
But let's play this out though, because Ethereum right now is not a retail chain. You and I both agree on that, right? The gas fees are way too high. I mean, this is becoming more and more of like an institutional chain. And so again, going back to the point I was trying to make, if you are expecting these traditional heavy hitters to come in and utilize your technology, don't we need to have it somewhat a little bit more centralized where you can make those types of decisions?
100% no.
Seriously though, the Fidelities of the world, like you want these guys, right? You want them to utilize your chain. How, what does the future hold for you if you're going to maintain your decentralization and no one's using it?
I think that's a reason why, first of all, the fact that no one's using it is inaccurate. Obviously, Saw has taken a lot of mind share with the meme coins. We've talked to, ad nauseum about whether that's, good or bad for the space. But, the TVL of Ethereum is still massive. A lot of times that's just where, if someone's building a real financial product, a DeFi product, that Ethereum is the first place they go. You don't just diverge from your mission of decentralization because of one hack. It's just not. Look, people can say, oh yeah, they did it for the DAO. We are in different times, and it's just a moot argument. There's no one seriously talking about this without just throwing shade on Ethereum.
But moving up topics here, Mike, have you been hearing from Kanye at all?
Yes, and it's weird.
So supposedly he launched Yeezy, or did he?
No.
I don't know. Well, first of all, like over the weekend, he starts putting out these tweets that don't even match his persona.
Yes. So I think the rumor is that he like either sold or like leased out his Twitter account for $17 million, and supposedly to like these like Bark Meta team and like they started kind of building up the hype for the Yeezy token. That's what I read on Twitter.
Okay, because so this is a token, and he was also tweeting about having his own blockchain. And then he met with a Polychain founder. Like, the story here is getting weird, and it's also very random. It's so over the place in terms of what is actually happening here. So the Yeezy token is designed to help Ye sidestep platforms like Shopify that have cut ties with him in response to his hateful rhetoric. Yeah, he's putting out some crazy stuff, and I'm gonna, keep that aside here, and we're gonna solely focus on the crypto aspect of it. But I don't know. There's so many tokens out there with his name on it. Like it's hard to know exactly what's his, what's not. And then
what's about big chain? One. There's one with like over 100 million market cap on BNB, and then there's like 30 of them on Solana, ranging from you can clearly see some of them in like thousands of market cap, and then there's one that's around like 30 million market cap. So I have no idea. I don't see anything, I don't want to call it official, but like, from his Twitter, we don't even know what's happening with his Twitter. I think there's just a lot there, there's obviously a lot of people who are trying to take advantage of this and just launching tokens of the same name. It is just such a weird situation. You said just stuff with, he originally said that coins prey on fans with hype. He said he would never launch a token. We talked about this in past episodes. And then, now this happened. So it's just really weird. But part of me just like, who cares? Part of me is like, this is such a, it's like falls into, all that MemeCoin grift and, the stuff that we talked about in the past. I just, part of me just doesn't want to think about this stuff anymore.
I do want to think about it because I'm afraid, Mike. I'm concerned for the future. You're talking about 70% of the Yeezy token will be reserved for Ye personally. Are you kidding me? 70%? I mean, yes, granted, Trump had 80%, right? We all know that. And that wasn't pleasant to see either. But I, I mean, I don't know. Part of me thought, okay, maybe a politician doing it in the United States, maybe that's a little bit more of an honest than Ye doing it and keeping 70% of it, like, and 10% of it allocated for liquidity provisioning and 20% for investors. I don't know. Like, I don't think people will realize that the moment they buy this thing, the cabals, the people that already have this token, they are going to dump on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm concerned. I'm concerned that this is going to be the norm. At first, I was like, okay, I don't really care. To your point, and this is like the rite of passage for people getting into crypto, that you're gonna have to go through these pumps in order to get to the other side. But
it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be the rite of passage, right?
I mean, I don't mind meme coins, but doing it on this level, I don't know, it's too much.
I agree. So I had this linked and I posted this whole thing about meme coins and how Libra maybe was the turning point, that we're going to kind of return to fundamentals. Investors are going to come in and look at the real builders building real projects. It was like a pretty good conversation. There were some people who are builders and they're just like, I'm sick of this. Like, how can I possibly compete with all the noise? And obviously knows that you have to, attention is a massive benefit in crypto. You have to have attention when you're building a project, but like, how can you cut through all the noise with the meme coins? Others are like, I disagree that we're returning to fundamentals. The greed will always be there. And yeah, it's just going to be an ongoing conversation about the direction of meme coins. And I think we're seeing a little bit in the markets that, everyone's starting to know that these things just go to zero. And, seeing a little bit for whether it's, causation or correlation that, Sol's price is down a good chunk. After the Libra incident. So, it is something that is just extremely tiring for people who kind of have the long-term vision of crypto. I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but it's, that's that meme of the guys, like, it's just all so tiring. There's part of me that, yes, worries just like you do. There's another part of me that just doesn't even want to put any mind share toward it and just focus on the builders.
Well, there is a certain spin that you can take into a certain positive spin that you can take. And I think that is from the perspective of Coinbase. I feel like lately, I don't know if you've noticed this as well, but Coinbase is a little bit more lenient towards the type of listings that they've been doing. And I mean, I imagine that this has to do with SEC dropping the lawsuit. So they feel like they've got a lot more flexibility, more room to run here. And they're, toting the line there, right? In terms of like some of the stuff that they're listing on Coinbase. It's not something that I'm used to seeing from Coinbase, and I don't necessarily mind it because I think it just shows how that the regulatory grip is starting to lighten up a little bit. So from that perspective, Mike, I mean, what do you make of Coinbase?
I think obviously this is a huge positive event in the US with regulations. This was just obviously coming from the last administration, they essentially they were suing Coinbase, that in this case that they accused Coinbase of acting as an unregistered securities broker. And look, I think this is great, right? This is, I think obviously other exchanges like Kraken and Binance US, who actually just recently opened up fiat withdrawals and deposits recently after not being allowed to do that for the last couple of years. It's great for US exchanges. And I think it's overall positive for the industry. The regulation by enforcement strategy is gone. We don't quite know who's going to have kind of the regulating power between the SEC and CFTC. But I think it's overall very positive. And, maybe it'll let these exchanges, like you said, list some tokens that were maybe on the fence on whether they were securities or not. But yeah, obviously a positive event.
And going back to what we just got done spending large part of our conversation talking about, which is the security. And that leads us into the next story where Blockade raises $50 million to secure blockchain applications. So that security narrative is starting to come back. Obviously, this has been in motion much longer than the Bybit hack, so this isn't just something that came up overnight. but it does show the importance of having the right security solutions in place in order to onboard, the next, I don't know, 7 trillion in assets. So give us a little bit more details on this one, Mike.
Yeah. So they, Blockade raised 50 million, led by Ribbit Capital with participation from Google Ventures, Variant Fund, and CyberStarts. And yeah, like you said, they build a lot of tools that help protect users from online fraud, scams, hacks. And you actually, where you may have seen Blockade is in MetaMasks. If you're about to execute a transaction in MetaMask, Blockade is a tool in the background that gives you warnings. And, maybe it helped you in the past help avoid performing a scam transaction. So, obviously I think in addition to MetaMask, they're doing a lot of work on the back end of many of these dApps that we use, like OpenSea, NFT marketplaces, and DEXs. So yeah, I think it moves everyone to, there's a lot that you can do by yourself to maximize your security, but it's like tools that like Blockade that are integrated into the apps and tools that we use that can, really, really help us. And one of those things is like you mentioned, just like clarifying a transaction. And like you said, there's a lot of like bytecode, there's a lot of like, all this indecipherable code back there and language that we need to kind of make that a little bit more human readable in process. So I think Blockade is a great tool to be able to give you those alerts to help you maintain your security.
And also a shout out to Glenn, who runs the business development team out there, does an amazing job. He came from Alchemy. Team's very talented as well, doing great things. So looking forward to seeing how they continue to protect this industry. Moving on, Mike. This one was kind of interesting to see. Fluent Labs raises $8 million, led by Polychain. We just got done talking about them, how they met up with Kanye, but on a more Web3 focused level, looks like they led this round, and it's the first blended execution network. What in the world does that mean?
Yeah, this is cool. So yeah, they raised 8 million in the seed round. You mentioned Polychain, Primitive, MH Ventures, and many others. So I think we look at interoperability, right? And you've got different ways of facilitating interoperability, right? You've got like the L0 chains like Cosmos and Polkadot that kind of ingrain interoperability into their design. You've got bridges like Layer 0 and Axelar that just move assets across chains. You've got chain abstraction protocols like Socket that are just essentially for, kind of like making chains all look like one to the end user. And now you've got this on the lowest level where you've got developers who can build for multiple virtual machines. In Fluent Labs case, it's a WebAssembly, EVM, and SVM Solana. At that developer level, to be able to easily deploy across all of these ecosystems, right? So I think you're just seeing the whole stack being the whole interoperability stack at all levels being built now, with Fluent, being one of the big ones on the develop.
So it sounds like essentially if you're, let's say, building on Ethereum, you can also get access to liquidity from, say, Solana, from Cosmos. So it's just a lot more interoperable. And so for a user, it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to do swaps, right? Is that kind of like from a user perspective? Is that the impact that you're seeing?
Primarily from the developer's perspective. If in the past they would, let's say we want to launch on Ethereum first, right? You want to launch a DEX on Ethereum, right? You launch it on Ethereum, and then you would have to essentially rework the code to launch that DEX on Solana, and then relaunch that code, redo the code to launch that in Cosmos, right? Now you can kind of build it all at once and then launch in all ecosystems at once. I think, getting liquidity and all that is a different story. But at least on the building side, is you're being much more efficient by kind of writing one code base and then being able to launch across multiple.
And the easier you can make it for the developers, that obviously trickles down to the users eventually. So it's good to see that. The next one that we'll cover, Mike, it doesn't sound all that exciting because it has to do with stablecoins, but I don't think people understand the importance of stablecoins in the crypto industry. So before we jump into what Mansa is doing, I just wanted to share this quick post that this altcoin season or potential season is looking a lot different than the previous ones. And stablecoin holders are favoring alts right now. And there's a lot in stablecoins that is like sitting on the sidelines. And so the easier you can make people to be able to onboard, to be in stablecoin, the more opportunities we have to have more liquidity in altcoins. And that's where you get altcoin season. So whereas before, it would go Bitcoin, Ethereum, and trickle down, a lot of people are saying that this cycle is looking very different and that stablecoins are going to play a key role in that. So it was interesting that you brought Mansa for us to discuss, because that's kind of like what they're focusing on. They're primarily focused on stablecoins. Is that correct? Like a payment, method of payment?
Yeah. I mean, look, like, sure, you can talk about how stablecoins kind of impact the trading market and prices, but I think stablecoins are the killer use case in crypto right now. Like they're in emerging markets. These stablecoins are used in payments every day at volumes much larger than or more active in terms of compared to mature markets, right? Because mature markets, we have all these financial rails and all that, or like areas like Southeast Asia and Africa, they benefit from stablecoins immensely. So Mansa is focused on stablecoin payments in Africa. They've raised a $3 million pre-seed round led by Tether, who is getting very active. We talked about Plasma last week. They raised a big round. I think it was 24 million. That was largely funded by Tether too, because they were building a purpose-built chain to optimize the transactions for Tether, right? So I think we're looking at obviously USDT being the largest circulation stablecoin, and Tether is getting very active in funding projects that are building very specifically for USDT. So yeah, Mansa, they specialize in cross-border payments using stablecoins, making just in general transactions across the African continent faster, cheaper, and more reliable.
All right, Mike, that about does it for this episode. By the way, for those watching, if you are going to ETH Denver, it starts this week. So I have a Telegram group. I have the link in the description. Also, be sure to follow Mike. He's Mike Chan on Twitter. Is that right?
W Chan.
Mike W. Chan on Twitter. Check out the website deepventures.io. They got a great news article that they put out. So be sure to follow Mike and catch you guys in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.